Welcome everyone to tonight's additional meeting of the Urban Planning Delegated Committee. This meeting has been called to discuss specific business. Before we commence the meeting, I'd request that all mobile phones be switched off or turned to silent. Thanks very much. My name is Councillor Wesgold and I chair this committee meeting. I will start by introducing my fellow councillors. To my left, Councillor Lisa Hollingsworth, Councillor Shima Abuki, Councillor Sophie Tawney. How did you like that? Our Mayor. Councillor Michael Nolan. Councillor Felicity Sinfield. On the other side of the table, Councillor Victor Franco, Councillor Mal Osborne-Smith, Councillor Rob Valliere, Councillor John Friend Pereira, and Councillor Chris Pattis. I also acknowledge Manager Governance and Legal, Mr. Brian Wee, to my left, and Director Urban Living, Mr. Scott Walker, on my right. There are other officers with us this evening and they'll be introduced as they come forward to speak. The Urban Planning Delegated Committee is being live streamed on the Council's YouTube to enable public viewing of the proceedings. The meeting is also being recorded and will be made available to Council's YouTube as soon as practicable after the meeting. The primary purpose of the Urban Planning Delegated Committee is to deal with issues of the Planning and Environment Act and the Building Act. This committee has delegated authority to make decisions on behalf of Council. For those presenting this evening, when it comes to the agenda item you're concerned with, an officer will introduce it and then I will call you to come forward one by one and join us at the horseshoe table. If you're making submission, please present your viewpoints clearly and concisely on why you support or oppose the application. Please do not repeat what earlier speakers have said and keep the submission focused on relevant issues and points not previously raised. If you're opposed to what is in fact the proposals being put forward tonight, please tell the committee why you disagree and suggest an alternative approach that would satisfy your concerns. Please focus on your concerns rather than matters of history or detail in the officer's report. There's a strict 3-minute limit for each speaker, including councillors, and whilst I chair this meeting, I can vary this time but seldom do. At the 2.5-minute mark, I will make a sound the bell, which indicates you have 30 seconds left to complete your presentation. For those in the gallery this evening, I would like to take this opportunity to remind you to extend due courtesy and respect for each other and the committee as a whole, as I'm sure you will. I would just finally ask you to make sure when you come to address us, and this applies to councillors as well, you speak clearly into the microphone so we can hear exactly what's going on. Thank you. I will now move to apologies. Mr. Wee, are there any apologies this evening?
Through you, Chair, there are no apologies this evening.
I will now move to declaration of conflict of interest of any councillor or council officers. Council officers, are there any conflicts of interest you wish to foreshadow for any matters in this evening's agenda? There don't appear to be any. We can move straight into the body of the meeting then. Moving to item 3.1, 508 to 510 Burke Road, Camberwell, Heritage Overlay. Outcomes of the Planning Panel Amendment C405 Borough. This evening, Mr. Emile Dixon, Senior Strategic Planner Heritage, will present the officer's report. Thank you.
Thank you, and through you, Chair. Good evening, councillors, officers and attendees. Amendment C405 seeks to apply the heritage overlay to Barrabool at 508 to 510 Burke Road, Camberwell, as an individually significant place on a permanent basis. On the 2nd of December 2024, a report was considered by the Urban Planning Delegated Committee on the outcomes of the exhibition process for Amendment C405, which ran from August to September 2024. The UPDC resolved to refer the amendment and submissions received to an independent planning panel for consideration. A planning panel was held on the 3rd of March 2025 to consider all submissions to the amendment. The panel report was received by officers on the 20th of March 2025. The independent planning panel supports the inclusion of 508 to 510 Burke Road, Camberwell in the heritage overlay. The panel does not recommend any changes to the heritage citation or statement of significance and recommends the adoption of Amendment C405 as exhibited. Officers therefore recommend the UPDC resolve to receive and acknowledge the panel's report as it relates to Amendment C405 and refer the amendment to an ordinary meeting of council for adoption. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr Dixon. This evening, we have two people with us who wish to speak to this item. Both support the recommendations. So I call first Paula Donoghue. If you'd like to join us at the horseshoe table, that'd be great. If I could just ask you to start with your name and the suburb in which you live, that'd be great.
Good evening, Chair. My name is Paula Donoghue. I live in Burundara, Camberwell.
Thank you.
I lived at 508 510 Burke Road for over 30 years. I just want to thank the people involved in realising the importance of this building. That's all I need to say. Thank you, sir.
Thank
and
you.
I encourage you to keep up the good work in maintaining the character of this suburb. Thank you.
You get an award for the briefest presentation we've ever had. Thank you very much. Councillors, are there any questions of this presenter tonight? There are none. Thank you. You may take your seat back in the gallery. I will now call upon Christina Brannigan to come forward and present to us. Ms. Brannigan, as before, as you know, if you could just start with your name and the suburb in which you live, that'd be great.
Okay, good evening, everyone. I'm Christina Brannigan. I live in Camberwell. I'm here tonight to speak on behalf of the Burundara Heritage Group and the community nominators who nominated 508 to 510 Burke Road. So I'd really like to thank Council for all the work, in particular the incredible heritage planning team we have and the heritage planners who've been involved in this, who we know do really great work and sometimes in quite difficult circumstances. So I'd like to acknowledge that. But I'd like you to know that the vast majority of people in the community really support what you're doing and are grateful. So I'd really like to thank the people who nominated and provided the new information about 508 to 510 Burke Road. And in particular, some of the councillors who've been quite involved in ensuring that the new evidence came to light and that due process was undertaken, both councillors from the previous council and councillors who are here tonight. So we would like to thank you for that. 508 to 510 Burke Road is a really interesting house, and as we know, was designed by a really important local and Melbourne architect called Christopher Cowper. And the house had been identified in previous studies, but unfortunately it didn't ever get protected, so we're really pleased to see it being proposed to be protected tonight. So we hope it goes forward. And that the Minister, if you do decide to proceed with the protection, that the Minister actually decides to action the paperwork. Thank you.
Councillors, are there any questions of this presenter this evening? There are none. Thank you very much for your presentation. I will now return to the officers for matters arising. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to thank both community members who came up and gave some kind words supporting the amendment. We have nothing else to address on this. Thank you.
Councillors, do you have any questions of the officers? Councillor Franco.
No questions, Chair, but I'd like to foreshadow that I'll move an amendment when the time is right.
I believe the time is right. Please proceed, Councillor
I'd
Franco.
like to move the officer's recommendation.
Do we have a seconder for this recommendation?
I'd like to move the officer's recommendation.
Oh, you said you wanted to move an amendment.
No, oh well, if I said that, I must have been not speaking the words that I was thinking. So I'd like to move the recommendation that's up on the screen, as written by the officers.
Is everyone clear on that now? Terrific, marvellous. All right, so we have a mover and a seconder, Councillor Tawney.
Happy to second that, Chair.
Thank you very much indeed. Is there anyone opposed to the recommendation as it appears? There are none. Councillor Franco, would you like to speak to the motion? Thank you.
Look, I'll keep it very short. We're referring this to a council meeting, to an upcoming council meeting for final decision. So I think the report is fairly clear, and this is a matter that's been before council and committee quite a number of times. So I encourage everyone to support the motion. Thank you.
I presume, given the brevity of that, Councillor Turner, you don't want to speak desperately? Thank you. Terrific. Well, I will now put the motion. All of you in support or favour of the motion? It looks unanimous, so I don't have to go through against and abstaining tonight. Well done. It is, the motion is carried. Thank you very much indeed. Let's move straight on to 3.2, 86 Wattle Road, Hawthorn, Heritage Overlay, outcomes of, again, a planning panel. Amendment C 405 Burrow. This evening, the officer's presentation will be by Nick Brennan. That's still right? Great. Senior Strategic Planner. Please proceed.
Thank you, Chair, and through you. This report relates to Amendment C400, which proposes to place a heritage overlay over 86 Wattle Road in Hawthorn. In March 2021, residents requested that Council investigate the heritage significance of Wattle Road, Hawthorn, with the aim of including the street in a precinct heritage overlay. GML Heritage were engaged to carry out this heritage investigation, and following their investigation, GML Heritage prepared draft citations for several properties in Wattle Road, including 86 Wattle Road. They did not, however, recommend the introduction of a wider precinct over the street. On the 5th of June 2024, the UPDC resolved to seek authorisation to prepare and exhibit a planning scheme amendment to place a heritage overlay over 86 Wattle Road, Hawthorn. This followed an application being made to demolish the building. Authorisation for the amendment was granted on the 18th of July 2024, and an interim heritage overlay was placed on the property on the 8th of August 2024. Public exhibition of Amendment C400 was carried out between the 22nd of August and the 23rd of September. At the conclusion of the public exhibition process, Council received 109 submissions, of which 59 were opposing and 50 were in support. And on the 16th of December, the UPDC resolved to refer all submissions received to an independent planning panel for consideration. A directions hearing was held on Monday the 3rd of February, followed by a panel hearing on Monday the 3rd of March in 2025. Two submitters spoke at the panel hearing, both in support of the amendment. The panel's report and recommendations were received at Council on the 20th of March 2025. Ultimately, the panel supported Council's recommendation that the property be included in a heritage overlay as an individually significant property. However, the panel did not agree that criterion A, which relates to historical significance, had been sufficiently justified for the property. And on that basis, the panel recommended that criterion A be removed from the citation and the statement of significance for this property. However, the panel still did support the property going into the heritage overlay on the basis of architectural significance. Officers and GML Heritage have reviewed that recommendation and made the suggested changes to the citation and agree that that be removed, but it doesn't fatally undermine the case for the property going into the heritage overlay. So officers are now recommending that the UPDC resolve to adopt that updated citation for 86 Wattle Road and to refer the amendment to a meeting of Council for adoption. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Brennan. We have one of the people in the gallery tonight wish to address us, and they are in support of the officer's recommendation. I would ask Christina Brannigan to join us again at the horseshoe table. Thank you very much. I won't give you a briefing. I think you know the...
Yep, good. I'm Christina Brannigan, still from Camberwell. Again, speaking on behalf of the Burundara Heritage Group and wanting to thank Council and everybody involved. I mean, has been a long process for the houses on Wattle Road, but this is the first one we've managed to get through, so that's fantastic. Assuming that Council decides to carry on with the protection process. So we do thank you, and in this instance, this house, people in the community, and they are represented here tonight, people who live on Wattle Road, did actually ensure that an independent study was undertaken that they funded themselves by an independent heritage consultant, and then council undertook their own study as well, and this house was found to be individually significant. Again, it was a house that had been identified in a number of studies going back several years as potentially individually significant, but it was never protected. So we're very happy to see that it stands a much better chance now of being there in 100 years' time. So I think that's all I'll say. Thank you, and hope we can get the house protected.
Thank you very much. Councillors, are there any questions of this speaker? There are none. Thank you very much for your presentation. I will now return to the officers. Perchance there are further points to respond to.
Thank you, Chair. I believe there are. Thank you.
Do the councillors any questions of the officers? There are none. Fantastic. I am now in search of a motion. Councillor Baillieu.
Happy to move the officer's recommendations, Chair.
Thank you. And do we have a seconder? Councillor Abuki?
Happy to second.
Terrific. Okay. Can we do that minor correction afterwards? Okay. Fantastic. All right, Councillor Baillieu, would you like to speak to your recommendation?
Just to briefly say, I'm glad the council took the time to give this property the fair hearing it deserves, and we'll vote on it at the next council meeting.
Fantastic. Councillor Abuki, you're fine with that. Fantastic. I will now put the motion as it appears on the screen. All of those in support? Now, I'm presuming no one's against or abstaining. The motion is again carried. Thank you very much. Just in case you get concerned, items 4, 5 and 6, general business, urgent business and confidential business are not required tonight because it's a special meeting. So I'll move directly to, I don't know if we can.
Not general business. With your indulgence, I just wanted to acknowledge that the immediate past Junction Ward Councillor is here this evening, Di Gillies, and just wanted to also point out that she was very much involved in the last council term in working with the community on the 2 items that have been on the agenda this evening. Thank you.
Welcome, ex-Councillor Gillies. I can now move to close the meeting. Fantastic. Before I close the meeting, I want to thank all of you who have joined us this evening, and I declare the Urban Planning Delegated Committee meeting closed. Thank you very much.